Hello everyone and welcome to Cinderful Gaming. I hope you're all doing well, I hope everyone's staying safe, and most of all I hope you're all getting a chance to fight that war against the Grey. Today we've got another video in our Start Collecting series, a series where we look at the various Start Collecting boxes for Age of Sigmar and take a look at how they will help you both start an army in Age of Sigmar based upon the faction they are supposed to represent, and also we'll look into how you can expand that force more and more. Today we're looking at the soulless deep sea elves of the Mortal Realms, the Idoneth Deepkin, the first children of Teclis, and they are a shunned sort of people. The true terror of the Idoneth comes with that most of them don't have souls that can survive in their bodies for long periods of time. And so those that do have perfect souls must hunt the Mortal Realms and take the souls of other beings in order to keep their children alive. It's a true tale of just sadness and this proud race of once that were elves being driven to these horrific actions in order to keep their children alive and their race existing. But let's look at their Start Collecting box. And so it's quite a decent one. We've got some really cool units in it that can give us a bunch of different things to play around with, and we've got like the start of some of the ideas that make Idoneth Deepkin so fun to both build, paint and collect. So we'll start with the hero at the front. You can see him with his giant sort of sickle and the very anglerfish sort of look about his armor, and he is known as Ishiran, a soul render. So you'll see me say Ishiran a lot. Ishiran is effectively this sort of leading sort of priest caste almost within the Idoneth society. Many of your heroes are Ishiran. And so he actually benefits the unit behind him, which are the Namadi Thralls, and we'll get into them more later, by being able to actually bring their souls back and put their souls back in the body. He is sort of like a healer for them, and it's a really cool character to have starting in the unit. He's also a great model. I've seen so many fantastic variations of this model painted up across so many different platforms. It's a really cool miniature to have starting, and you've got a little fishy there that he can paint, which is always cool. This is where your Idoneth, you know, all these little creatures that you're going to get throughout the army are going to be fun sort of areas where you can try different colors and try spot colors and really have some fun. And as I mentioned before, we've got 10 Namadi Thralls inside the box. They only are Namadi Thralls. It was many thought that there was a dual kit between the combat and the archer unit. That's not the case. They are separate units, and so these are 10 of the combat Namadi called Namadi Thralls. And you'll hear me say Namadi a couple of times. Namadi are the ones that they're trying to get the souls for. These are your lowest Idoneth, and it's not that they're sort of seen as nothing. It's just unfortunately they've got withered souls and they need other souls to survive. They're sort of this plagued people by this curse that they have. The Namadi are really cool and excellent troops. They've only got a 1-inch range, so that can become an issue, but small units of them can do a lot of damage. They actually get bonuses against units with 1 model, and they get bonuses against units with 4 or more wounds. And it's just a fun sort of unique set of rules that make them quite cool to play around with. The last unit inside the Start Collecting box is a unit of 3 Achelian Guard. Achelians are the Idoneth that are sort of the elite nobility class. These are ones that have their souls intact and aren't sort of cursed as many of them Namadi are. The Achelian Guard box can be split into 2 different variations. You can either have the Morsar or the Ishlayan Guard. The Morsar Guard are a much more combat focused unit, and generally these are the ones you see people talking about when they talk about combat heals. The Ishlayan Guard are also a really good defensive option, as they have effectively ethereal. They have a 3-up save that cannot be positively or negatively impacted in the game. It's a really cool ability for them to have. The Morsar Guard, though, as we're talking about, are really sort of combat focused, and they do a lot of mortal wounds, and they're really fun and punchy and a really great sort of hammer unit to have. They do, however, die pretty quickly. So it's up to you really which way you want to go and how you want to play your Idoneth army, but both are a solid option, and I don't think you can really go wrong picking one unit over the other with these. But where do we go next for Idoneth Deepkin? Well, the first thing I'd recommend grabbing is your Etheric Vortex, the Gloomtide Shipwreck, or more commonly known as the Idoneth Shipwreck. I've rarely ever heard anyone actually say its proper name of the Etheric Vortex. This is a cool terrain piece that your army gets, and you get some cool benefits while being around it. Your enemy suffers some mortal wounds, and you get some cover on the table, as well as just some other buffs around there as well. It's nothing fantastic, but you do get the choice of either putting it as one big ship or two big ships on the battlefield, so you could potentially buy two if you want, though you wouldn't need to do that until you're playing much bigger games. But you can also split up the ship into two halves and place the two halves around the board when you're doing this. So you can buy two ships, but it's not necessary. Buying one to start with and probably buying two later down the line, and a lot later down the line at that. We'll look at some units though to add to your army, and I did mention before that many people thought that the Namati Thralls were actually a dual kit, but we're going to look at the other Namati unit that's not a dual kit, unfortunately, is a different separate kit, and that's the Namati Reavers. These will give you some much cheaper sort of and more numerous shooting options within your army. You've got some really cool abilities where if they're close range they can do some multiple shooting, and they've got really dynamic posing, which is fun and awesome to just sort of have that sort of movement in an army. They're another great unit and just will bolster up your troops and keep it that sort of elf theme at the center of your army. Looking next though, we're going to look at a character, and this one, she is called the Shura Tidecaster. So the Tidecaster has an interesting ability. Idoneth have this really cool sort of allegiance ability that's called the Tides, where every turn you sort of get different abilities depending on how the tide is going. And what she does is she actually allows you to flip the tide. It's a really unique ability that can give you some cool different ways to play your Idoneth, and I really recommend picking her up early so you can play around with this sort of mechanic as it changes the core fundamentals of how your army acts within the turns of the game. This is something different, and not only that, but a really cool model. She's got just a fantastic sculpt that you can really go to town on, but it's just something different and will allow you to play more ways with your army even at this early point. The next thing we're going to look at though is really we're going to get into the reasons why we are playing Idoneth, and that's because we want cool sea monsters. So for me, the Alapex is the coolest. Like, what's not to like about having giant sharks in your army? They actually dropped in points recently, and they've become quite a viable option in both just general play and also competitive play. I've seen some people do really well with them. But they're just a cool model. I mean, you can paint these up as a variety of different sharks. I've seen people do great whites, white pointers, bull sharks, grey nurse sharks, and a whole bunch of different things. I've also seen people paint them up like orcas, which is cool, or killer whales for those who don't use the word orca. Just a bunch of different things. It's a really awesome sort of model. You've got these two Namati, sort of almost chariot-esque, I guess it would be. You've got, you know, a gun swivel mounted on the top, and riders. It reminds me very much of a chariot. I know it's not a chariot, but it reminds me of. It's a really cool model though, and you can have them in units as well, which is even better. I mean, what's better than one shark is having a unit of 4 sharks running around and munching on people. It's just awesome to me. The last unit I wanted to look at, and there were a few options and that I was thinking of for this. An honourable mention to the Eidolon of Mathland, which is a fantastic sculpt, but it's not the model I'm sort of suggesting here, because like I mentioned for the Achelian Alapex, the reason you're really collecting Idoneth is because you want cool sea monsters. So I went for the big cool sea monster instead of the other sort of centerpiece model. You can go look at the Eidolons of Mathland though, they're fantastic models, and you could probably replace everything I said with an Eidolon of Mathland here. However, the Leviathan is the big sea monster. It's a giant carnivorous turtle with this howdah on its back and these Idoneth sitting atop it. It looks stunning. I've seen so many cool schemes done with this. It's just a great model to really go to town on. So it's also got some really cool abilities in game that actually provides like a cover aura for your army around it, as it's like shells impenetrable, and I'm not really sure what else it does, but yeah, maybe it's at the top of like the sea, and you're protecting the rest of your troops underneath it. It's cool, and it's some cool abilities to add to your army. And if nothing else, it's a giant carnivorous turtle that you get to paint up, and that's good enough reason just to go get that kit for me. But that's enough from me on Idoneth Deepkin. I hope this video has been helpful for anyone looking to get the Start Collecting box to start their Age of Sigmar force. If there's any more questions you have about Idoneth Deepkin or this Star Collecting box, or any thoughts you have on it as well, please leave them in the comments down below. Also, don't forget, in the description of the video, we'll have our Discord link, and you can come join us on our Discord. I'm always there chatting to people about all different things Warhammer, and it doesn't have to be Age of Sigmar related either. And last but not least, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. We're fast on our way to 1,000 subscribers now, and that's amazing. And thank you to everyone who's supporting the channel so far. You guys are fantastic, and I am so appreciative of everything you guys do. Lastly though, stay safe everyone, stay well, and most of all, keep fighting that war against the Grey. I'll see you all again real soon. Ciao for now.